The Articulate Coven is the original, unofficial podcast and fan community for Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire and Anne Rice's Immortal universe from AMC and AMC Plus. Welcome to the Articulate Coven. We are your hosts. I'm Joel.
I'm Ashley.
And we are the Articulate Coven. Hello, Ashley. People can see us.
We can see each other. My God. We've just been talking to our phones this entire time and not ever looking at each other. But now we can see the horror and the joy on our faces.
Here's the sad fact for me, Ashley, is I realized that tonight you've stopped seeing me as I was at 22 in college, and now you see me as the 42-year-old man that I am.
Yes. This is also true as I sit here at 45. I definitely did not have these.
Why are we talking about this if you're listening to us? In case you are only listening to us, we are now on YouTube as well. The show has been on YouTube for a while, and we appreciate everybody who's joined us there, subscribed to the channel. But Ashley and I felt like the show had grown and the audience has grown to a level where we ought to step it up in some way. Hey, why don't we try video? We've got this cool audience building on YouTube. Let's give them what they expect for their platform. So if you want to see us, we got faces now. Hi, everybody.
We have faces. We're here. We're here, and we're older than we once were, but who isn't?
That's the fucking truth. So we are the Articulate Coven, the unofficial fan podcast and community for Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire, Anne Rice's Mayfair Witches, the Tatlamasca show that's forthcoming, the Immortal universe as a whole, and not just that, we cover her books as well and the movies, adaptations that have come out before. You can find a ton of stuff in our backlog, and we've got some brand new content this week, Ashley. I did my first video that actually came out the day before this podcast is going to come out. I posted a reaction video to one of Anne Rice's interviews with Charlie Rose. She did a ton of these interviews that came out on PBS in the 90s and through the early 2000s. Actually, since you and I talked about this, I found several more interviews. So I think we've got a stack of these if we want to go through them. Yeah, but
I'm so excited.
I am too. And I really enjoyed doing it, honestly. It took, again, and forgive us for our stumbles as we work through our first video capturing and first video posting, really, especially for this channel. But I enjoyed doing it because the interview in particular that I did was from 93, and it was concerning Lasher primarily, although Charlie went in a lot of different directions, as I think he does in all of these interviews.
Right.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun hearing from Anne. It had been a long time since I'd watched a full interview with her. And I don't think we're going to cover these on the show because they're not that great. But because I watched that in YouTube, YouTube suggested that I watch one of her episodes where she was on the, who was it? Not Kilborn, Craig. Who was the Scottish guy that had the late night show?
Ferguson.
Craig Ferguson. I started to say Kilborn,
but
that was the guy that I didn't care for that much. I mean, Kilborn's
No, Craig
fine.
Ferguson rules.
Yeah, Ferguson is the business. And it was a good interview. It was fun to watch, but there was no info in that one like there is in the Charlie Rose interviews. You know, he didn't ask her about her Catholic upbringing.
The in-depth questions. Right. What makes you write about these monstrous creatures that people fall so deeply in love with?
So thanks to everybody who's been checking those out. If that sounds of interest to you, then make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. You can find us with the link in the show notes as well. Yeah. So some feedback before we get, or some follow-up, I should say, before we get into this week's episode. We are talking right now, by the way, about Season 2, Episode 8. That's going to be the finale of Season 2. That's what we're covering tonight in this episode, but we got some feedback first. Okay, so I posted from 2 episodes ago, you had this great, you and I both gushed quite a bit about Lestat's promenade across the back of the theater as we got our first glimpses of him in the preview for episode 7, actually. Anyway, lots of people commented on that video. It was a lot of fun, but Nikki in particular, Nikki Hyde commented, and I'm going to try to see if I can drop in the ones where we get actual comments. I'm going to start putting them into the video. I want them to reenact this when Lestat is in his rock star era, talking about the strut across the stage. And I immediately had a flash.
Please and thank you.
By the way, Nikki's talking about the Season 3 renewal has been announced in between our episodes. Before the drop of the season finale, it was kind of strange, the timing. I felt like, why not wait? However...
Why did they wait?
Okay, so there was an anniversary, I think, that they might have chosen to do this on. It was in June 26th of 2017. Anne had gotten the rights back to the books and to make her own shows. We had launched this podcast, as a matter of fact, already. And I know, right? And
that's how long we've been doing this.
She posted on Facebook this long post about what the young man who will play Lestat is doing today. Maybe he's on stage. Maybe he's in class. Maybe he's shopping. Maybe he's,
What were you doing, Sam?
Yeah, and we just didn't know. We didn't know. We were all waiting for Sam Reed back then. So it is interesting that on the anniversary of that post, that's when they dropped the news. We're getting to season 3. It's going to be Lestat focused. As a matter of fact, let me just read the press release, because this is one of the next...
Yeah, it's delicious.
This is the press release. In season 3, resentful of the perfunctory portrayal in the trashy bestseller Interview with the Vampire Lestat sets his story straight in a way only the Vampire Lestat can by starting a band and going on tour. Gabrielle, Nicholas, Magnus, Marius, those who must be kept. They join Louis, Armand, Malloy, Sam, Raglan, Fareed, and others we can't tell you about yet on a sexy pilgrimage across space, time, and trauma.
Oh, yes.
Woo. All right. A couple of things there. First of all, Gabrielle, Nicholas, Magnus, Marius, they are doing the Vampire Lestat. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is the story.
That's happening.
Yeah, we're going to get Lestat's backstory genuinely.
And I've seen some people balk a little bit at the idea of okay, now we're going to get the same fucking story a third time from a different perspective. And to me, it's I get that. And if you haven't read the books, you might really, really be concerned about that. But there is so much more to the Vampire Lestat, the novel itself, than just the retelling of his time with Louis and Claudia.
Honestly, so we're in between these seasons. One of the many things we're going to do, and we'll get to that later, but we're going to do a book club where we actually go through and work our way through the Vampire Lestat, piece by piece. Maybe not an episode for every single part, because there's 7 parts of it and some of them are pretty short, but probably about 5 episodes for the Vampire Lestat. So we're really going to dig into it. And one of the things that whole process did for me was I was looking, there's a part of it that is Interview with the Vampire. It's he revisits that time specifically in one section of the book. It comes late in the book, honestly, and it's real brief in comparison.
It's a snippet.
Because he had, in the show, even more so than in the books, Ashley, you forget, in the show, he's not that old when he makes Louis. When he goes to the New World and he makes Louis, he hadn't been around for that long. In the show, he's got an extra century. It's 170 years or something like that. He is by the time he makes Louis. So, listen, we've already talked about how in the show, Louis and Lestat's time is considerably briefer. It's less than half of the time that Armand and Louis spend together. Yeah. Lestat's life without Louis is way longer than Lestat's life with Louis. So, don't worry about it. There will be some revisiting of Interview, is my guess. It'll be a good way to bring Delaney back in if they haven't already in some other way, right? You can bring her in for a scene or two. It will also be a way, potentially, to continue the idea of the unreliable narrator, even as we switch narrators again, sort of. So, I don't know. I don't think that's something to really worry about. There's so much else in the book, in particular the fact that they're going to do both the backstory and the modern day rock star story, which brings me back to Nikki's point. When Lestat's in his rock star era, I want to see them reenact this strut across the stage, and I immediately flashed. In my head, it was Daniel standing there at the microphone, but someone's at the microphone as the MC, right? The crowd is chanting, lights are low. There's some purple lighting in the background, and you hear him come on the mic. Thems and theys, straights and gays, children of the motherfucking night. Coming to the stage right now is the brat prince of the Coven of the Articulate, the blonde bitch who's here to break your heart, made by Magnus, but the son of Gabrielle. It is Lestat de Lion Corps, and then Lestat. Anyway, it's going to be good.
I love the I love the WWE sort of feel of that announcement as well. That's a little crossover for my heart. That's hilarious.
In the announcements, by the way, for season 3, Rollin Jones had a note like of thanks to the fans and thanks to AMC for backing us and thanks to this beautiful cast and all of my writing crew and whatever. But he called us, Ashley, beautifully unwell as we climbed the tower to demand season 3.
Yes, we are a little bit of an unhinged bunch. You can't be this like fixated on people who make each other this miserable, and not have a little bit of, something going on.
All right, so here's what's next. First of all, we're going to cover this episode. That'll be tonight. Next week, we're going to do a follow-up episode. We'll talk about the season as a whole, a little bit of season 3 speculation, although there's plenty of time for that. We'll do your questions, your follow-up. If you got feedback and stuff, we'll pull some good things and bring from the audience and do that next week. Then,
if there's anything any questions that they left unanswered or things that you remember from this season that you're like, why the fuck didn't we find out about that? Why did they drop that? Why didn't we hear more about this? Like, bring all of that up because I want to really, really get in deep with it.
I am absolutely with you. So then on July 14th, we'll have the first episode of the TVL Book Club. And then on the 21st, so we're going to break up listen, I'm currently in a phase where I read pretty quickly. Like I'm deep into part 2 of the Vampire Lestat already, which is great. I've got my notes. We'll be able to revisit it. It's all good. But I know not everybody could read quite that fast. So
right.
We're gonna break
if I get the right mindset, I can murder a book in like a day. But like I really have to like click into that superpower from my teen years. But I did find my copy of the Vampire Lestat, my paperback that I've had since fucking college, at the very least. I found it in this move. Brett found it amongst all my books. So I found like my copy of Queen of the Damned. And so I'm so excited to actually have the book in my hand again. Because the last time I read it, I think I did audiobook the last time I read the Vampire Lestat.
So I'm fairly certain the last time that I did audiobooks as well. I'm currently listening to Simon Vance, the Audible version of the Vampire Lestat. That's what I'm doing this time. I was actually talking to my son, my 16-year-old, the other day about like, hey, listen, not to tell you what to do, but you should totally get into the Vampire Chronicles is what you should do. I was younger than you were. Anyway, I was talking to him about this series the other day, and I was like, I know for a fact that I own them in audiobook versions. I know for a fact that I own them on Kindle. You could read them digitally if you want to. And I'm fairly certain that I have a physical copy of every single one of them as well. I do not have my copies from high school, or junior high in my case. I wish, we've talked about it before on the show. When I read Queen of the Damned the first time, it was the 90s paperback edition, like the green... and I can't remember what all of the novels at that point had windows on the cover, like in the little window. You know what I mean?
I think that one's black. Is that one black? Because I found my copy of that, and it's the old one too. I thought, but it might not be the oldest old one.
Yeah, well, mine might have been an edition younger. When I bought mine, I had the Vampire Lestat and Queen of the Damned both in the same edition. The Vampire Lestat was blue. It was like a deep blue. Tale of the Body Thief in that edition was the black one. And it had it had like the Miami skyline, I think, in the window of it. I don't remember what city was on the cover of that Queen of the Damned. And the reason I don't remember what city was on the cover is because it said damned on it, I had to put duct tape all over my book on the front and back so that nobody else could see that I was reading a book that said Queen of the Damned. My teachers were like, you can't carry that around school.
Tell me you're from Louisiana without telling me you're from Louisiana.
So I wish that I still had my duct tape copy, but I didn't. But I don't. That's one of the beautiful things that I love about the Vampire Lestat. Early in the book, Lestat is discussing finding his. Someone gives him a copy of Interview with the Vampire, and it's like the covers are all ripped off, and it's been read 1,000,000 times and like well loved. I love that moment because I'm like, everybody's copy.
That's how my books look.
Looks like that now. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and like annotation, like in notes, and I probably take more notes. I've probably taken more notes in my Kindle versions because that's tended to be what I've been reading while we've been working. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure I've got shit scrawled in some in the margins too. It's just fun to find, those old copies that you've had for so long.
So to give you all some more time to read the book as we go along, we're going to put a movie night in between our book club episodes. So the 14th we'll do part 1 of TVL. The 28th we'll do part 2 of TVL. But in between we're going to do The Lost Boys. Great Kiefer Sutherland movie.
I can't wait.
Yes, very excited about that. I think the week after that, we're going to do the Francis Ford Coppola Dracula movie. And then I'm going to put up a poll in the Facebook group, and I'll put it in the Discord as well. But we'd love to hear what your opinions are on the funny movie. We had suggested Once Bitten and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The one that I've seen suggested directly a couple of times, even though we didn't mention it, is a George Hamilton movie. It's called... what is it? Love at First Bite, I think. I've never seen
Love at First Bite. I haven't seen that one either, I don't think. The name sounded familiar, but when I started looking at who was in it, I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah, it seems very campy and right up our alley, honestly, as like a nice change of pace. Speaking of camp, though, like that again, in the things that have leaked out about season 3, I think they've referenced Rocky Horror Picture Show and Hedwig and the Angry Inch as references for the style of pop rock that they're talking about. So like, I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I do too. I think that, I don't know. He's so fucking good. Yeah. Sam Reed is just so fucking good. It's hard for me to imagine him not being able to do this in a brilliant way, regardless of how it's done. So I think it is honestly, we've talked about this. It is the part of the storyline that's a little cringy for me because I just can't picture it correctly. And it's just like, I don't understand how this is supposed to happen, but I understand why it needs to happen. So I'm going to go along with it and hope they're like, kind of glam Rolling Stones kind of thing and not like something, I don't know. But I've always worried about how that can be properly portrayed as well without being just a cheesy, gross nightmare.
You can say it. You don't want it to be too Hot Topic.
Thank you. Yeah. That's really accurate. Yeah. Not
too
no,
hot
indeed.
topic. A little Hot Topic.
Not too hot. A little Hot Topic.
A little Gadzooks. A little. What's the one where they sell the sex toys? Spencer's.
Spencer's. Yeah. I want all of that. I also saw a really funny thing today where it was like they really got to get on this merchandising. Just different products, and one of which was sex toys. And I was like, that is fucking hilarious. I can definitely see some really, really intense fans needing a little treat for themselves that's themed.
Some silicone fangs would not be amiss. I'm not telling you what to do, AMC. On a totally
we're not giving you product ideas, but you can do whatever you want with your time and money.
Totally different topic, Ashley. We got this feedback on the YouTube channel today, as a matter of fact, on a video, not the very last episode, but I think 2 episodes ago now. As an experienced BDSM submissive, you were absolutely not too harsh on Louis about episode 2.6. He makes me furious. There's abusive BDSM and healthy BDSM, and Louis abuses Armand in their everyday life. Healthy BDSM is theater for 2. It's a game.
Ooh, yes.
Armand might be a real sub, but from what we've seen, Armand seems to be reenacting his past in a way that looks a little more like self-harm, along with a little bit of, I submit to you forever as an eternal apology for what happened. Absolutely can see that. Any decent dom would refuse to participate in this. It's toxic. But Louis is controlling, cold, and harsh, and he does things like the lie face down thing, as just one example, that Armand does not seem happy with. He's just used to being degraded and not valued. So Louis would be forced out of any real-life BDSM community as an abuser. This is good to know. This person says, I'd love to see Daniel and Armand in a healthy and caring BDSM relationship. Armand's a monster, but it's a trusting and vulnerable act to be the submissive, and healthy dominating requires responsibility and care. It hurts to see how he treats Armand in those moments. So you asked for takes from folks in the BDSM community, and I
love it. Thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you.
No, that's fucking awesome. Thank you. We want that. That's fantastic.
Well,
it's just good to get a different perspective on it.
Yes. It shows that we weren't wrong in our feelings of it, right? Like we understood that it's a dom sub relationship. They've been clear about that. You and I don't live that, so it wasn't foremost in our mind. And when you get a little bit of pushback, like, hey, it's doms and subs and you guys don't get it, we're like, okay, yeah, that's probably true. But like, the fact of the matter is that no matter what relationship you're in or what style of relationship you've chosen, consent is the key to keep it healthy.
Yes.
And we both felt like there was a lack of consent from, and it's weird because we also both of us know, like in the overall season arc, in the overall show arc, Armand is the manipulator. We knew Armand was the quote unquote bad guy if there was one, but in this, Louis was wrong.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's something too. I've always just sort of pitied Louis so much. I've always felt really sorry for Louis. And for this version of Louis, I don't just sit around feeling sorry for him because he really is a bit of a dick. And I like it. It's not hitting for me or the changes aren't good for me at all. No, it's not what I mean at all. I'm just so used to feeling sorry for him to like feel these really harsh negative feelings towards that character that I've had throughout the season has been really, well, and even through last season has been really interesting to kind of sort out.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And man, okay. We have talked ad nauseum about how this show has done a good job of adapting and remaining true to like the heart of the novels, the soul of the stories, et cetera, and that's what Mayfair didn't do.
And intrinsically the characters as well.
Yes, but here's the other thing though that this show has done and that Mayfair didn't do, and it's an example of how I think most fans, even devout book fans like we are, will be very accepting of changes in the adaptation, in the translation, as long as you tell convincing, interesting stories that have something to offer. The Charlie Rose interview that I did from 93, one of the things that Anne talks about is like elevating the supernatural fiction genre, basically. And like, I want to write the best story that I can that happens to be a supernatural
about vampires.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, or a story
or
of
witches or whatever.
Exactly. And I think that's what this show has done. This show is great drama, whether you find yourself a vampire person or not, right?
Right.
And I think that's why we're so hopeful that it's going to have a tremendous boost when it gets on Netflix, because that's a great big open audience that aren't necessarily... If you're an Anne Rice fan, you already know this show exists. Whether you've given it a chance or not, you know that it's there.
You've been here or you're not. Yeah, exactly. You've either watched it and gotten pissed off and written it off, or you're still hanging out with the rest of us.
But like, the reason why this will hit in a way that Mayfair won't, and I know the general audience has found some enjoyment from Mayfair because it is sort of campy and over the top, supernatural fun. But the reason why this will hit is it's the kind of story that you'll come back to. Just like the novels, right? When we read them at 12 and 13, we're connecting with aspects of the characters and aspects of their story arcs. And then when we come back at 40, we're connecting with different parts of those story arcs and different parts of those characters. The ennui of immortality, right?
Man.
Or the desperation of mortality. Those things hit with us in a totally different way now than they did then. The same is true of this series. And like, kudos to the writers, kudos to the creatives, and kudos to AMC for putting the money behind it. They put
absolutely
good money behind this show, season 1 and season 2. I will say, I would not be surprised to hear that the actual dollar figure for season 2 was a little lower than season 1.
I agree with that, but I think it's because season 1 had a lot more dynamic locations and more sets and things like that. I feel like. And I could be bullshitting, but it does feel like our Paris was a little bit more, confined to specific places, I mean, like it was just...
I think it comes down to they bought that or rented or whatever they did. They got that giant factory for the theater.
Right.
And they built that tremendous set for the theater. And that's great, but then they basically blew the budget on the theater is what it felt like. And they're like, well, we'll use that one cafe and we'll redress it when we go to the different cafe.
and we'll keep the yeah, Madeline lives in her shop, in her house.
That's right.
It's all the same place. Don't worry about it. Everyone does that.
And none of that felt wrong in the moment, but I'm saying there are places where you can see them cutting corners, and I think they won't have those corners to cut with season 3. My guess is that the Netflix deal basically pays for season 3. Right? Like it's probably a wash for them. And then what we can make from AMC Plus and what we can make from licensing future deals. So I think this is the start of a very virtuous cycle for AMC as far as a business for the Vampire Chronicles. And let's hope that they continue to ride that train and continue to pour the money into it so that the product doesn't fall off, so that their margins increase.
And hopefully they can keep a good, safe, healthy, fun environment for everyone to work in. Because we don't want to lose Rollin at this point. That would be fucking awful. You don't want to lose any of these creatives that have been working on this and bringing so much to it. I mean, everyone's so fucking passionate about it, passionate about the source material. You can see it on everyone's faces when we see the behind the scenes stuff. They're just thrilled to be a part of it, and they're excited to tell about their part of it. This is what I do. This is what I get to do on this show. And I just hope that they're able to maintain that kind of environment that people want to work at, so that we can keep the creative team as much intact as possible.
I could be wrong, but I think, and I'm sure the contracts probably go up every season a little bit, but the big pay jumps, I think, that are required by SAG come at season 5, after season 5, and then again after season 7. I think there's another one, and that's season 7 is the one where these sitcom people make $1 million per episode from then on out or whatever. Right. The fact of the matter is Sam and Jacob are probably never looking at that kind of money because of the nature of this show and the fact that it's only going to be 8, maybe 10 episodes or 12 episodes at most if they grow it in the future. Somebody pointed out the other day, The Walking Dead gets 16, or at least it used to. The main show did. And so I think there is the possibility that we could go to longer seasons. And my thinking there is okay, I don't know if they'll do this for next season. My guess is next season is just 8 episodes again. But if you're going to do the Queen of Damned properly, it's probably a 16 episode run, 15 or 16 episode run, like you got for Interview. I feel like genuinely you could do the best parts of the Vampire Lestat with
over an 8 episode season.
Yes, if you've already got 15, so we've seen glimpses of it, right? So when
you've already introduced a couple of characters that we need. We've already talked about a couple of people. Like
Nicholas's introduction, you could do the whole thing, and most of that. Well, I got a whole pitch for the way you start season 3. We'll do that when we get to TVL the novel. But my point is, I can see a future where our seasons extend a little bit, but that will mean that by the time you finish Queen of the Damned storyline, maybe Tale of the Body Thief, these guys are going to get pretty expensive. So that's what I would be worried about. Now, what you could do then is divide them up, right? And you make a couple of spinoff shows where the contracts go back to a more reasonable level or whatever. There's not the guarantees. So I don't know how they're going to do it, but I do think we're on the top of the hill and are just rolling downhill into lots of fun for Vampire Chronicle fans. So let's cross our fingers and enjoy the things that are coming to us now that the season 3 announcement is actually real. All right.
Has finally happened.
Let's get into this thing because there's a lot in this episode. Opening right off the top, I had no energy to scream. If I had, I would have used it to self-emulate. Whew. Louis is in a bad way.
Yeah, the fact that his ankle wounds healed and enclosed the stones inside his fucking Achilles is horrifying.
I mean,
I almost threw up. I was like, oh, bleh, yeah. That was real rough.
I am so glad they did not show us a removal scene, honestly. I thought that's where they were going to go at first. You'd see him shaving him out in the alleyway or something, but
that was intense.
But at the same time, though, I think somebody on the Facebook group an episode ago or so were talking about how Louis is just the quintessential example of Catholic guilt, and the way you wouldn't be surprised if he was wearing a hairsuit under those fancy duds.
Right.
He's literally like self-flagellation with every step.
Yeah.
And he's done that for 70-something years.
Oh, it's awful. It's awful. It's awful. I will say by the end of this episode, I felt like I was like, there's Louis. There's the Louis I know. Not necessarily at the very end, but there was a moment, and we'll get to it obviously when we get there, but this episode, it just did such a good job for me of bringing everything together and having these characters have some growth throughout this season, some serious growth and change and new self-awareness and things like that I wasn't necessarily expecting to see. And some of the things I felt about, this Louis is so different than my Louis this season, definitely felt different about it this episode.
Well, somebody posted a meme of Lestat as we see him late in this episode, and they're like, there he is, finally, the real Lestat de Leoncourt, not somebody's impression, this is the guy, or something like that. But honestly, I think towards the end of this episode, we finally do see real Louis as well, as he comes out of Armand's spell, as he steps away from that relationship, as he steps out from under the grief of Claudia, not forgotten, but processed, finally, beginning to be anyway. So it's something, man. Okay, there was a refrain, though. Louis says it several times early, and then I think he says it again late as well. Claudia is dead.
It's dead.
Man, there's a literary reference there, and I can't remember. I kept thinking about the Christmas Carol, where the opening line is Marley was dead at the beginning, or something like that's the opening line. Marley was dead. There's another novel, though, like a classic literature novel, that has some sort of refrain like that, with just the character's name is dead, and it's mentioned several times early on. I do believe that's an allusion in some way, but it is interesting for Louis in that moment, as he's sort of like stream of consciousing his thoughts to Daniel there of like what it was like. All he could remember is Claudia is dead. All he could focus on is the absence of that fledgling, right?
And he's saying it.
The connection's gone.
He's saying it in present tense, too. He's not saying Claudia was dead.
Yes.
Claudia died. He's saying Claudia is dead. As though each time he says it, he's like realizing it.
Like he's there at the funeral
just
today.
Experiencing it every single time. And it's so horrifying. Like he's just been sitting in that for all of those years.
I was the defeated vampire. No one was looking. And Armand says that. I was the defeated vampire. No one was looking. That's how I got away with letting Louis out. And Daniel goes,
I can gremlin around in the darkness.
Daniel, all episode long, was just perfect. But in particular, the way that he is like overtly beginning to show that he's done with Armand's shit.
And also
I finished with you last episode.
I love feeling like he was like had some control over what was going on too. Like he was playing his game. He was laying out his game in this too. Like it's not just him being fucked with and manipulated by these two vampires. This is him being like, you know what? I can fucking play too. I can give as good as I get and watch it, you know?
And a specific thing that made me think this came up a little later in the episode, but we'll insert it here now since we're talking about him. I assume Daniel's been talking to Raglan James even when he's off camera, right? Like in the moments where we don't see Daniel in between these last few episodes, he's been maintaining contact, don't you assume?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I assume that they've been in some sort of at least a little bit of like checking
chat
in and
or something,
what have you.
Because I feel like
because he doesn't seem surprised. When those chats pop up, he doesn't seem surprised by them. He's not like, whoa.
Very specifically.
And he seems comfortable hiding it and involving it in his,
Yeah, well, so this one that happens later in this episode, he initiated it. The first message comes from him, and then Raglan goes, "Yes, Daniel Malloy," or whatever is the opening chat. So yeah, I got the impression very much in this episode that one of the reasons why the game has switched, and it is really Daniel that's driving the bus in this one, is because he's continued to put the pieces together off screen,
right,
with the help of the Talamasca, or at least the group that's been helping him.
Yeah. And he's clearly comfortable enough with the situation and with the people involved that he asks for them to bring that script to him. You know, do you have that? Do you guys still have that up in your shit? Because I'd like to read it if you do. An original copy would be grand.
Man, okay. Crazy Louis in the cemetery was so fucking perfect. Him just fucking losing his shit was amazing. He was fucking crazy. Turning little circles on the floor so that he can mark who's going to die when. The other thing that it reminded me of is Arya from Game of Thrones has the names that she says every night as she goes to sleep, the list every of people she's going to kill, right? And he was calling them out. Santiago.
Yep. It is... And it is really interesting to see him in that kind of like manic madness. He's so driven by the revenge that he's not losing any bit of that. You know, he's like, I may be fucking crazy right now, but I'm going to be crazy about killing your asses. That's what I'm crazy about right now.
Well, and I'm fairly certain we've mentioned this before, but later in the books, there are certain vampires who have the ability to see and speak to spirits. And I don't think that's what has been implied with Louis. I think maybe some schizophrenia has been implied with Louis. Some mental unwellness has been implied with Louis. But it is interesting to me that they are laying that down with like he's been influenced by so many people that aren't there. And in this episode, he gets his plans from the caretaker, the cemetery caretaker who he kills straight away, you know? So I think that is interesting, and I do wonder if there won't be payoff for that in some fashion, whether it be a true haunting from him or some other character or what. But
yeah, a way to keep Delaney around, a way to keep Claudia around for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who knows? But I mean, I thought that was hilarious. Also, it reminded me a lot of it's a good nod. I think that happens in a lot of sci-fi and kind of horror things. People kind of go a little crazy if they're stuck with a dead body too long. You know, Norman Bates and My Girls in Yellow Jackets. You know, things get a little iffy around the edges, and you end up eating your best friend's ear.
Armand's such a bitch. Okay, so he I mean, listen, say what you want to, but when Lestat had wronged Louis, he just fucked off for like 10 years and sent him presents from afar. He didn't get in his head
nice
and
ones
go,
too.
It wasn't me. I didn't do it. Here's why I had to do it. I believe if you'll listen to me, you'll understand. You'll understand why
it wasn't me.
The way. Yeah, just stop. So please leave Paris, Louis. Bitch. You are a 500-year-old vampire. Like, just come whoop his ass and throw him out of Paris if you want to save him. Like,
and when he was like, what does he say? I don't give a shit about you or something along those lines. I'll give a fuck about you.
Don't even worry about me, live Paris. I don't give a fuck about you.
I don't give a fuck about you, buddy. Go on get yourself.
Oh, by the way, okay, so speaking of Daniel, this is when Daniel's chat comes in with Raglan. So Raglan's handle is like RJ something, but Daniel's handle, and I had to read it twice to make sure, it's Pulitzer or two.
I was trying to read that very, very hard, and I was like,
yeah, it's Pulitzer or two.
I'm so glad you paused it and got a good eye on it. That's excellent.
Okay, this attack on the theater, this retribution from Louis, it's one of my favorite parts of the book. It's one of my favorite parts of the 94 movie. And in some ways, I feel like they did this better because one of the problems of it is like, what does Louis think he's doing? Like, what is the plan here? And here we have Daniel to verbalize it. What was the plan? And Louis goes, the plan? I was going to die, and I was going to take as many of them as I could with me. Louis does not expect, this is a suicide mission.
Right.
So
he doesn't give a shit.
No.
If he dies, he doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, we asked, like, how many times has Louis tried to commit suicide, honestly? How many? Do we think this is a common refrain, or was it just that once in the 70s? I mean, he may not have gone into the sun except that once. Louis has tried to die a lot of times. This was one of them.
I think that we were a little off the mark on that. He just didn't give a fuck. I mean, at this point, what does he have to lose? He doesn't fucking want Armand. He's real pissed at Lestat. He's fucking lost Claudia. He's made his first fledgling, lost Madeline. You know, so he's fucking on it, like and we know what our guy does when he's pissed off. He's gonna set something on fire.
Yes, yeah, 100%. I mean, he says,
I loved how stylistic it was. And the music was really good. It sort of had this feel to me, and I had a very specific thing it reminded me of earlier today, and I fucking should have written it down because now I can't remember it. But just like the way the music, it was just so.
So someone in the Facebook group suggested it reminded them of Sin City. It was like very like pulp noir, sort of thing.
Yes, it was very pulpy noir.
You've got his narration, and you've got like the driving sort of jazzy, the French. Daniel Hart has done this great thing, honestly, where he's given Paris a sound. Like Paris has a feel all on its own, and whether you're doing like the Armand meet cute or the tragic elements of the story, or this where it's like retribution and hellfire, it all feels Parisian as Daniel has defined it, So I dug that. And I didn't get the Sin City thing. I did think to myself, this is like something. I feel like they were not mimicking, but they were homaging something.
It would. Mm-hmm. And I'll probably think of it in the middle of the night and I'll be like, God damn it. But it was like something very specific that came to mind. It was like, but it's just like kind of like throwing down like, here's how this cool shit went down. It was sort of the vibe that I got. And it reminded me of something real specifically, even down to like the music style. But like I said, that's for me to figure out later in the night.
Well, I mean, so the way that it actually plays out in the film is more drawn out than this, but it sort of reminds me of the montages in Kill Bill, right? Where it's like, I'm going to do this, and then we did that. Or like when she's describing the way that the team was before they broke up or something,
Yeah. It had to have a little bit of a Tarantino vibe for sure. Yeah. Boy, I don't know. But I loved it.
Since he's going to retire from filmmaking, by the way, and just do TV directing now, let's go ahead and put him on the list. Let's bring him in for Queen of the Damned episode something.
Oh, who commented today about how great the finale was, and congrats to the team and how much they love it? Mr. Mike Flanagan.
Fuck yes.
I know. My brother said that
busy.
to me. And of course, he was like, somebody commented and was like, oh my God, any chance you might be making a creative appearance with that sort of team over there? And he was like, man, Amazon's got me by the balls, basically.
He's
Amazon's bitch right now.
Lock, stock, and barrel, which, good for him. Like, we've talked about this
before.
Good for
him. Yeah,
he cashed
we
one
adore
of those
him.
great big creative deals and overarching, producing deals. So, and the cool thing about that is they're going to allow him to make The Dark Tower, among other things. So like, we're good on Mike Flanagan content.
Yeah.
But it is nice to know that he and others like him in the business are noticing what they're doing over here.
Yes, it is. It really, really is. Like when someone who is like, he's pretty much the, crown prince of the horror genre right now. So it is very nice for him to be taking notice, and maybe talking about it will bring some of his fans to the party as well.
Okay, so let's talk about, was it enough revenge for you? I saw more than a couple of people say, I wish the whole fight had lasted longer, and in particular, I wish there was a little bit more between Santiago and Louis. But but even before we get there, he kills 6, and we effectively see none of it. The fire and Blade,
we just hear him screaming.
Right. Was it
can I say how much I love the motorcycle bomb? That was so fucking great. Brett and I both cheered when that went off. We were like, yes, that's it. That was brilliant, and I loved it. I wanted.
2 birds,
I
bomb.
thought, yeah, loved it. I loved the way he was fucking with Santiago. Like, I really loved the way he was made it mental with him and was calling him Francis, which is really fucking hilarious that his name is Francis. And that's also, wasn't that Deadpool's first villain?
Yeah, so in the first Deadpool movie, the guy's real name is Francis, and towards the end, he keeps calling him Francis.
That's all I could think of.
I don't know that this is a Deadpool reference, but it was a good one regardless. I do love,
so funny.
And again, we've talked about this so much. Come to me. Louis gives us come to me in a different way, right? Lestat's used it. Turns out Armand used it to Lestat, et cetera, et cetera. But like now Louis is using it for this motherfucker he's been waiting to carve up. And boy, does he.
Oh, well, and I really loved that. I mean, I think we all were like, we love to see the scythe, do we not? But I loved that when he was talking to the farmer, he was all shining up a scythe and he was like, maybe you want the machete instead. You seem like a machete guy to me.
Use the machete.
Use the machete. I'm like, yeah, that's probably a better call for our guy. And it was great. I could have used more, but the kind of mental fuckery he was doing really appealed to me. So I don't know. I'm not mad at it.
I also, I liked it because it's a reminder that that's not what the story is not about revenge.
No.
And there's nothing that Louis did in Paris, honestly, that helped him heal. None of this stuff is the reason why we get our Louis back at the end. Honestly, now maybe those vampires needed to die because, like, would Santiago have let him escape and live? Like, probably not. It probably would have been a thing, right? But at the same time, that's not the point of this story. That's not even the point of this episode.
Also,
so, like, we do it.
If they had never taken their asses to Paris, like, I mean, Jesus Christ. Of all terrible ideas. But that's fine. This is where we had to go to get where we were going, and now we're there.
Man, okay. So Santiago has been a real shit this whole season, but the desecration of Claudia's ashes is pretty fucking terrible.
Oh my God. Like, I was like, ooh, no, about they used her ashes for the makeup. I was like, ew, no, that's horrible. And then he made it worse, Joel. He made it worse. He made it so much worse.
He made it so worse. So here's the one thing on that, though. Having seen some of the shit that Louis will say in the middle of a fight to Armand and to Lestat and, et cetera, even what he said to Claudia at different times, I sort of like that there was somebody who was willing to give him that fucking terrible right back.
Yes. And you want Santiago to go out like Santiago should go out. Like 100%. We wouldn't want him to be like, don't kill me. Like, that's not what we want from him. We want this fight. We want this explosion. We want this hatred to get, strewn across the set. And it did. Boy, how good was his head.
Oh, it's fantastic.
How good did that head look?
It was so good. And honestly,
that made it sound like a sex act, but I was talking about his actual fake cut off head. I don't really know about his actual I don't know about his Hawktua, but I do know that his dead head was quite cool.
So here's what's cool is and we've talked about this too. In the 94 movie, Santiago gets the scythe, down, and he's like cut across
in half.
The shoulder. Yeah, and it's like hanging off. And it was this amazing angle. Like Rick Baker, I think, did the makeup for that. And I think Rick might have been involved with some of the makeup on the show. I don't know if he was involved in the head, because it turns out they had his head already. They had done a full cast for Ben Daniels for a different show, and so they literally just pulled the head off the rack.
Which is so nice. Like, can you imagine how convenient that would be? You're like, oh, so-and-so's got my head. You could just get it from them.
The same effects company, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so where were we? Okay, when did you start?
So we've cut off Santiago's head.
Yes, we've cut off Santiago's head. And then I love, by the way, that we almost immediately go to the Armand of it all. And I love the positioning here, too. It's like Louis on the bed up above and Armand's on the floor.
Oh, the sun? And the fucking sunlight coming through the window?
Yes, yes. While he's like, when did you start lying to me? Which is a great way to open, by the way, right? Like, because that's all that matters. I don't need all of it. How long has this been going on, effectively?
Right.
And I honestly think that Armand does such a good job of, like, using the truth to dress his own lies, right?
He's such a dick.
It probably was, just as he said. He came back from that night when they were going to make Madeline, and the whole theater troupe is on stage telling him what's going to be what. Now, he doesn't lay out exactly the truth of how it all went down from there.
But his part in what happened next.
Yes.
But
I do believe, though, that this was forced by the coven. And the reason I say that, it's just like, again, early in the season, we saw how Lestat destroyed his coven before they moved to the theater. Armand is not a person of action.
No, he's a weak leader.
He's so passive. And so I do think that he was tired of the theater, and I do think that he did want to go away with Louis, But even if it cost him Louis, he was willing to follow along and be a part of what they were telling him to do here, because he was like, oh, great, this is my way out. Oh, no, don't throw me in the briar patch. I mean, that's effectively what all these times when Armand to Lestat, oh, no, Lestat, don't tear my coven apart and make me stop worshiping Satan. Move out of this cellar.
Don't make me quit wearing rags and living in filth. Like, my God, what if I wore shoes? What if I wore shoes and got back to eating people again, like I like? Yeah. He's it's really hard to be sympathetic to Armand. I'm looking forward to getting a different version of Armand as we go along, as I feel like everyone's grown and changed in the time since this story has started. But he's a real dickhead right now.
Yeah, he's a real dickhead. That's a good way to put it. Okay, so we get some hints of Lestat's making here again. We move to Magnus's lair. And Lestat has the lines even. He's giving Magnus's lines to him. The lights going out of your blue eyes, like all the summer days are gone. God, there's some good writing in these books, folks. I don't know if you know it. I love Lestat's first line to Louis, though. First of all, he asked him, was it a good day's rest? Mm-hmm. And then, does it take a lot out of you, destroying everything in your wake?
I love it when he's talking about like, okay, yeah, so this is how it was all laid out. No, I didn't get put in the chains because I was, a good boy, but the assholes did. And then over there next to the murder gremlin were a bunch of half-dead blondes as well. And just so funny. He's so like dismissive of fucking Armand all the time, and I love it. I fucking love it.
Never misses an opportunity to jab at the short little bastard, which is funny, by the way. In the show, they play him as shorter too, but Assad is actually, I think, taller than Sam Reed in real life.
That's hilarious.
Not a lot, but some. In
the magic of film.
Right in that moment, as he called out Armand as the gremlin, Kelly goes, "Oh, perfect. No notes."
No notes.
she can't stand Armand. Okay, so this whole scene though is really good. I loved Lestat's attitude in the scene, and it makes even more sense after the fact once we get all the revelations of the episode. But it's like he's in his moment of grief here. Right? He also lost a fledgling and a daughter, and also he knows there's a larger void than there was before between him and Louis, et cetera, et cetera. At this point,
and he had to sit there and look her in the eyes as she burned.
And does he know that? I mean, I think at this point he does know that Louis made it out, because I'm guessing that he can feel him. But like until just a few moments before, he wasn't sure that Louis had even survived or was going to survive, right?
So, or was going to. Yeah.
Lestat's got a lot of things going on, and then they come to him, and he's like, "These two the one that did it, and the one that I put my ass on the line to save, and now here they come to throw some shit in my direction. I didn't do nothing." Now, Louis points out with a great line, why you crossed an ocean to rehearse a play that would burn your daughter alive. Like, that's true, and I like that we didn't let him off the hook. Lestat came across the ocean on his own. The coven didn't go get him.
On purpose.
They called him. They told him to come, please, do this thing. But Lestat came.
You can let someone leave a fucking message. You don't have to pick up the fucking phone when you know it's someone unhealthy on the other end for you.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And
just
it's not,
saying.
Like,
the motherfucker has caller ID. He knows who was calling him.
Yes, and we also know now that he's strong enough physically to have resisted them too, right? He was not compelled into his action on the stage. Now, once you're there and once you're part of the trial, whether or not Lestat felt like he was in danger from the coven, I don't know. I do feel like
we'll find out more.
Yes, we'll find out more as we go, I think. But my point is, he's at a low point. He's like, these two motherfuckers are the cause of my pain, and here they come to sling shit. And I love his attitude throughout all of this, as he sort of gives it back. And I really like it when they tell him they're going to kill him, and he's like, you can't.
That's cute.
So we get an Akasha reference. He says, I've got the blood of Magnus. And Armand, at this point, the weasel in the corner, Magnus was burned, and he lights his up too. And he goes, I have the blood of Akasha in me. And it didn't make sense at first, but I realized Armand doesn't recognize that name because he's never heard it. And here's the beauty of that. He knows enough about those who must be kept and what Lestat would have been referencing to put two and two together eventually. So either sometime in that room or sometime later, Armand got mad all over again because he realized Magnus showed him the queen and king, and he never showed me.
That Marius showed him the king and queen, Marius. And that he's been running around and palling with Marius too. Fuck you, buddy. There's just so many things for him to get pissed about.
So I assume, I don't guess that there's a reason to believe this, but I assumed that Armand knows that Lestat had met Marius. He knows that he didn't tell tell Louis this, but I think Armand knew that his plan was to go and find Marius. So when he leaves Paris in the flashback,
the first time,
I think he knows that Lestat was going to find Marius, and then he knows that he never came back. I'd put those two things together and say he probably found him, or Marius found him. Now maybe Marius whooped his ass and that was the end of it, and he doesn't know the extent. Well, now he knows the extent. You met the fucking queen. He's my maker. He never showed me the queen. He didn't even say and this is the beauty of it. Like Marius doesn't even like to say those who must be kept in front of Armand. It's so fucking surface what he lets him in on. And then Lestat gets there and he's like, let me tell you the history of our kind.
Let me tell you everything I know about vampires.
You're a really pretty blonde kid. Let me talk to you for a while.
You look like me when I was younger. Let's discuss it. It's like fucking myself.
Ashley, I've never considered, but that's exactly why Marius loves Lestat so much. He's so
it's really on brand.
Yes. He's like, well, I'm the best Roman, and here's the next best.
And here's the next best guy.
God bless it. Okay. But out of that, though, so Lestat and Armand and Louis sort of tete-a-tete there a little bit, and Louis gets an idea. And again, here, they're doing it better than they even did in the books. It never made a whole lot of sense why Louis stays with Armand. In the movie, they sort of get around it by making it almost feel immediate that he tells Armand to fuck off.
That he leaves.
It's not. Yeah. It's like a decade or so. Even in the movie, I think it's supposed to be. But it plays like it's almost immediately after they leave Paris. Here, there's a reason for him to go with Armand, and it's because he comes up with this beautiful idea, and leave it to Louis to come up with such a brilliant plan. Louis is going to ruin 3 different lives by sticking with one monogamous relationship. Like, he goes with Armand, and he'll make Armand suffer because he's already told him, I'm never going to forgive you.
Yeah, and I'm going to just make you miserable forever.
And
it's
going to
be fun
myself
for me.
Miserable because I don't like you anymore.
Because I don't like you. And I like this other guy, but you know what? I'm going to kiss you real good in front of him just to make us all feel shitty.
Right. Oh, I can't kill you, Lestat? Well, fuck you. I'm making out with this dude for the next 80 years. How about that? Think about that.
Here's your death. Here's your death.
So, okay, Lestat has a line there, though, that I think is really, really good as they say goodbye. And Daniel calls it out. Lestat says, let's see how long it holds. Daniel asks, what did he mean by that? And Louis goes, well, of course he meant that he didn't think we would last. We would stay together. I think he knows that there's already Armand fuckery with the nature of the events and who did what and where. How long do his lies last? How long does his memory
Well, he has to know. He has to know that there's fuckery, because why else would those two be there together? Yeah. Like, he would not be fucking hanging out with Armand if he knew. Happy couple. Yeah, if he knew exactly what Armand had done, he would not have been hanging out with him still. He would have not given him that warning to get the hell out of the Coven House.
Okay. And just when you think you know the most smug asshole in this show, because Lestat does that, let's see how I can wait 80 years for you to get over him. Then we flash to Armand in the modern day, who can't just sit with the fact that he's continued to have these two bamboozled for all of this time.
Right.
He did love you. He really did love you. It must have been terrible for him as we left that night. Fuck you. He's such a smug ass at this point, which is crazy because he's watched it already fall apart a little bit. Like,
right. And at that point, he's saying that to be hurtful. He's not saying that to be like, to be like, oh, well, just I should have told you then. I think he's totally saying that. Like, he loved you, and you still came with me to make us all miserable.
Oh, it's
Ain't
like
that
a reminder. Fun? You made both of us miserable these last 70 years. Good call. Okay, good call. Good call. That's even worse, honestly. I thought
I know it is
reveling in his own. Okay. And here's the moment. Thank God we got congratulations for it on our Facebook page. The tractor salesman story, Ashley. They fixed the episode. It's episode 2.
Yes, they did.
Episode 2
Joel's
of season
been
1.
pissed since episode 2 of season 1 about this.
Okay, so if you don't remember this,
it's pretty much the only thing that troubles him about the series, everyone.
It really is. It's like, that's the one thing. So Louis is turned in the cemetery, and he dies his physical death and whatever, and then they go into town, and he's amazed by all the lights and how everything looks and seems. They go to this bar, and he begins to run his game on a tractor salesman, a traveling salesman, and Lestat telepathically tells him to get his eyes off the beefcake sailor and back on the traveling salesman, and then they go on with the episode. And at the time we were like, they literally they say 5 minutes after that fledglings and masters can't speak to each other telepathically. Why would they do that? Why would they not catch that in editing? Here's why.
What a stupid miss.
They wanted to show us, and look, it makes me feel good as we went, when we did question things and we did say, well, what are we even really seeing here? They want you to understand that. Even if you've never read the books, even if you don't know that Louis' story is not exactly the Lestat that we'll get when he tells his story. And it's finally occurred to me, honestly, why do we believe that everything that Lestat has said in all of his books is canon, right? Like, all we've got is his narration of these these parts of his life, but like, we don't know that it played out exactly that way, even in the books, you know?
No, we don't. They're all, we're all unreliable narrators. Yes. Are we not? Yes. Like, everything that we tell, every story we tell is from our perspective and from what we experienced from it. And you and I could have the same experience and have 2 different stories to tell about it. And that is the crux of our vampire matter here.
There are 3 sides to every story. There's my side, your side, and the truth, right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so in this universe, since we don't generally have an omniscient narrator, and this is true in the novels too, this is not unique to this story in the TV show, although it does occur to me they're seemingly going to maybe do a slightly different thing as we move forward. If you're telling all these stories in the modern day, then you don't have to have them reported to somebody. You can just show the events, just as we see the scenes at the end of this episode, and they're not being told to anyone. They're just happening, and we're watching them.
Right.
I think it's going to be interesting to see where they go as they go here. But in this moment, I thought to myself, they planted these little seeds for us on purpose to show us.
To be questioning things.
Yes. This is not all as it seems. Some of these things happened. Some of them didn't. Some of them happened very differently. And it will only make a revisit more worthwhile. Like, that's to be right. Now we know they meant it.
And it makes you question too. Like, you're like, what it does? Like, what's real? What's not? What were just lies? What were mistakes? What was an omission? It's great. And I think that's one of the things that makes even knowing we're about to get a third telling of parts of the same story, it's very exciting to me because it could be almost an entirely different story that we're going to see.
So
just to,
Ashley, between this moment and the fact that we realize that Lestat is really not the bad guy of this story, I just want to say a big fat "I told you so" to everybody.
I mean, yeah, he's the one that saved Louis.
Do you know the heavy lifting that I've done out here holding up our baby boy?
Oh,
protecting
it's
his
very
reputation?
hard work for you. I know. He's so handsome and everyone hates him. It's terrible. It's terrible, Joel. You're a soldier. You're a soldier for Lestat.
So in the announcement, we didn't talk about it earlier, but in the announcement for season 3, there's a bunch of names we
His apology.
And we're excited about. Well, no, that's good too. Although, yeah, let's mention that. Roland Jones apologizes to Sam's family and friends for his ongoing possession by Lestat. And I promise we'll send Sam's body back when we're done and canceled. Not for a long time, I hope.
Yeah, I loved it. I love that.
But no, what I meant was there are names that we expect: Magnus, Marius, Gabrielle, Nicholas. Those are all expected. We know that Daniel Malloy's coming back. We know that Armand's going to be back next season. We know that Louis and Lestat will be there. They also, though, mentioned two names that we might not have expected. Farid, Dr. Farid, which was in season 1. He's a character that doesn't come in the novels until the Prince Lestat novel, but makes sense based on the way that they've connected him to Louis and Armand's situation in Dubai, that he could potentially come back in. That opens up a lot of really interesting possibilities, honestly. But the other name that was surprising was Sam. And
Sam.
I read it 3 or 4 different ways. I was like, are they saying? Because they don't specifically. I mean, they mentioned Lestat early, and then they don't at all. And I'm so like, are they just reiterating that Sam Reed will be back to play Lestat in this season 3? No, because they don't call out Jacob specifically, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like,
no, it's our Sam the playwright.
Sam the playwright, Sam the vampire. And so why is Sam going to be back in season 3? And my guess is in another spin-off show. It's because he's a Talamasca agent, and he always was.
I love that twist. I love it so hard. I thought that was amazing, and I love the way that like the way that Daniel, as Armand says, you just couldn't help yourself throwing one more bomb before you walk out. Like, it's so good the way he just unravels Armand's bullshit, and it also makes that meme with him sitting next to Sam with the door lock with the Cheeto puff, like, even more hilarious, because now we really know that, I mean, fuck all. He might as well have just been sitting there by himself.
Yes.
But then they've said that Sam is in 2 different places in this death of Claudia, in this, like, after the trial, what happens? During the trial, he's got Sam in 2 different places. And he's like, then Armand's like, no, he was with me. And Louis is like, yeah, he was with me. Yeah, he was with him. And it's just it's so brilliant how he gets to play these cards. Like, he's been holding this fucking royal flush and been waiting and doing the slow roll. And then here we go. Bam, look at my fucking cards, bitch. And it all goes to pieces.
We find out that Sam in the modern day is a DJ who wears a decorative helmet while he performs. Okay, so a lot of people have been saying Daft Punk, but Kelly pointed this out. I don't think it's Daft
Deadmau5.
Punk. Daft Punk is a duo. I think, and she thinks, it's Marshmello.
Marshmello.
Yes. So Marshmello is one of my kids' favorites, which makes him perfect for this sort of thing. It's like, it's music too young for us, honestly, Ashley.
I love it. I'm not familiar with Marshmello.
Go look him up when we get off. It's it literally, his helmet looks like it's a marshmallow, and it's got like a weird, like, X eyes crossed out smiley face or something. But
okay, yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's who they're referencing here. He is a solo helmeted DJ. Although somebody did post a picture of one of the Daft Punk guys, and he looks a lot like Sam. He's got the curly
That's fucking hilarious. Yes, I saw that. That was so fucking funny. Yes, I did see that. All I could think about was what's his name? Deadmau5 or Deadmau5?
So yeah, Deadmau5, but I didn't. So here's how little I know that is a thing musically. It was Is that a band? Is that a person? Is that many people?
It's a DJ. He's a DJ.
Okay,
I think
just a DJ.
They're a DJ. It's a DJ. They're a DJ. The mouse is a DJ.
Oh,
not as dead as he seems.
Here's my suggestion to you all, real quick, on a different pop culture front. If you've not been watching, if you're a Star Wars fan at all, or hell, even if you're not, if you just like good stories, if you've not been watching The Acolyte, you got to go watch The
Acolyte's so good.
I'm not going to tell you anything about it except that the fucking coldest line of dialogue maybe ever in Star Wars, someone screams out a person's name and the bad guy goes, "Was that its name?"
Yep.
Like, kill somebody.
Real gross.
Was that its name? Oh, it's so cold shit.
Real gross.
I love it. Would have totally fit in amongst our vampires anyway.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So Sam is
in the spirit of being as hateful as possible, is saying the meanest thing you could possibly say.
I used her.
Sam's a DJ.
Pleasure myself. Sam's a DJ.
My God.
And he's working for the Talamasca. He was with the Talamasca. Right. He's still with the Talamasca because he's the one that turned in the script that Daniel has out as the last evidence to push Louis over the edge. Okay. I love Daniel pulls the Columbo here. Just one more thing.
Just one more thing.
Why did you have the bloody knife in your drawer if you didn't kill him? He's just a few more questions here, and it's like 3 things in a row, and he pokes there, and then hands the script. And just as Armand says, he threw a bomb into the middle of their relationship. Like, this thing was ending on a quote-unquote happy ending. Louis was
they were supposed to go have dinner at the dining room next.
Okay. Because I'm going to forget it if we don't say it here. Armand and Louis say they have a surprise. They have a special treat for Daniel at dinner. And then we never get to it. What was the special treat, Ashley?
I don't know.
Were they gonna offer to make him a vampire anyway?
Probably. Or just do it.
Or just do it without asking.
Or just do it without asking.
Maybe so. It's got to be it, right? They were gonna give him the option.
I would think so.
Okay.
Unless they just had a really good meal plan. I don't know. Maybe they flew in some deep dish from Chicago.
They brought the sushi guy down from upstairs.
Oh, yeah, they did.
This one's not wriggling, Daniel. You're fine.
You're fine.
Okay.
Eat your sushi.
During Daniel's Columbo questions, though, when we get a couple of flashbacks to the theater as Louis putting these things together in his mind, we get 2 more great shots of Rebecca, our fellow alumni, Louisiana Tech Theater alumni. We see her yelling guilty and then banishment from the crowd. So there you go, 2 episodes for your residuals, Rebecca.
So fantastic.
Make a boatload. And then Daniel just puts it out. Where does the bullshit start? Amadeo, Armand, Arun. Where does it start, Ashley? Is everything that we know about Armand a lie? I mean, we know that's not true.
We know that's not true.
But a lot of it is, though, right?
A lot of this is bullshit. I mean, everything that their relationship is based on is bullshit.
Okay.
Everything that, I mean,
yes, no, I agree with you. All of that has been, it's all false advertisement. Some of the feelings might have been real, but everything that led it up. He manipulated Louis and put him into places. He manipulated the theater to fall apart. He manipulated Lestat to be a part of this. He manipulated everything that came out afterwards for his own benefit. Now, like,
and all at the same time, he fully intended Louis to die.
Yeah, I mean, that's
all at the same time.
Pisser is, that's surprising to me on the one hand, but on the other hand,
it was surprising to me a little too.
I mean, let's look in the book, in the movie. Armand doesn't go with him to the theater to help him kill all those vampires. He's waiting for him right outside. When he comes out, I got my carriage ready. Let's go.
I'm going to give you a ride, buddy.
But, like, I think Armand just follows the wind, And he's like, well, let me see. Will the theater win? Oh, my God, Coven.
Yeah.
Louis beat the shit out of me and made me let him out. I don't know how he did it.
Yeah, he's a fair weather fan. Like, he's going to go with whatever team looks like they're going to win and hope for the best. I mean, and I think maybe that's because
Lestat
maybe that's out of his sense of self-preservation. Could be part of that. Like, this is how I've always been able to survive. I've just rolled with whatever was given to me. I've said yes and. I said yes and when I was picked up by the slavers. I said yes and when I got picked up by Marius. I said yes and when he turned me into a vampire. I said yes and. Yes and, yes and.
Armand, he's not an asshole. He's just an improviser.
He's an improviser. He's bad at it. He's a bad improviser. He's like an improviser you had to watch in college.
Okay, so when is Louis in New Orleans? The next thing we see, well, first I shouldn't skip over it because he throws Armand up against the wall. Which by the way,
there's a fight.
Love that Louis. Well, there's not a fight. Armand doesn't
fight back.
Yeah, he doesn't fight back like Lestat did at all. He just gets his ass whooped, and then Louis says, first of all, he says, "Don't harm Daniel. If you do, I'll fucking kill you." And then
you better be gone.
You better be gone when I get back. And fair to Armand, he is gone when Louis gets back. We find out later,
I did love
there was
when he threw him against the wall. Yeah, there's some bullshit happening. I did love that when he slammed him into the wall, that the bookshelves that were up too high for a normal person to reach all crashed down and broke, so anyone can pick up those books and read them now. Yes. Fuck you, buddy.
Yes. Well, and that pays off later too. We'll get to there in a moment.
Yeah.
Okay, but after that, Louis leaves. We see, crouched Armand there in the corner, and then we flash to the next scene. Louis is, we very quickly realize, in New Orleans. He's driving back into New Orleans in an Uber.
And you can tell he's in New Orleans because he rolls down the window and he smells the air and he looks so happy.
Yes.
And that's how you feel when you go to New Orleans.
I mean, unless you hate it. If you love New Orleans, you love the smell of New Orleans. It's unique. It is not always, it's not perfume. It's not candy, folks. But
sometimes it's horse pee and vomit. But there's jasmine in there too.
Yes, there's jasmine in there too.
And you can feel the humidity. Like the humidity just hits you in a way that's like, and I mean, we both live in humid ass places. It's been hotter in Little Rock lately than it's been in New Orleans. But like, there's just something about like the feeling, especially when you're near the river, like that air.
It's the breeze off the water. That is absolutely what it is. It's the breeze
God,
off the water.
she's the best city in the world.
So, okay, but there's a big question in the fandom right now. When is Louis in New Orleans? Okay, the driver references Hurricane Odette and the Essence Festival that features all the members of, is it New Edition? I think
New Edition, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All the members of New Edition are going to perform. All right. In the comments on our Facebook page, someone has said, or Facebook group, I should say, they say those two events happened in 2021. Okay? But there were no hurricanes that made landfall in 2022 in New Orleans. So I think, and this is just because here's the deal. So far, all the events that we've seen take place in 2022. The interview takes place in 2022.
Right.
The second interview, I should say. And even across the two seasons, we had that long break while they made season 2. Still, season 2, all the modern day stuff up until this last episode has been 2022. So I don't believe that
I don't think we went back in time.
No, I don't, and I don't think that we're supposed to interpret that this is happening before the interview and maybe the cause of it. No. Louis is not living with Armand anymore by the time he goes to New Orleans. I think this is 100%. A matter of like, well, it's just like, okay, you know how in the West Wing they just decided that all of American history happened until about this year, and then there was an election year in a wrong year for some reason. And in the West Wing universe, the elections are on a different schedule than ours. I think that's what's happened here. We're in this universe. Right. Odette happened in 2022. That Essence Festival happened in 2022. Maybe COVID lasted longer or something. I don't know what to tell you. But I don't think we're supposed to interpret that that's a strange timeline issue. I think they were just desperately trying to get us a hurricane that actually hit landfall.
Right. And that's not, Katrina.
Yeah.
Because that's not let's not do that.
We don't want to go tell a heartwarming story that happened in the middle of Katrina. No, you're right. Odette I didn't even remember that Odette was a real hurricane until I looked it up.
I'll be honest, I didn't either, and that's why I just figured it was just something they had made up. And like that is a hurricane that's going to happen next year when Louis goes to visit Lestat.
Right.
It's just I was very willing to just go with that.
But I mean, what they wanted was the stormy romance of you two. Right, they wanted them embracing as the hurricane enveloped the house. That's the image they wanted, and they reverse engineered from there. I think that's the way we're supposed to take it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rollin. It's really. I thought it was a great moment too. Okay.
That scene's fucking amazing.
The whole scene is amazing. But here again, Ashley, is a place where they have improved upon the book. The scene where we go and see sad, depressed Lestat in the novel and in the movie are both, they always have been, underwhelming and disappointing to me because Lestat is not himself in any way. He's this like sad, crazed thing. And here, he is fully Lestat. He's charming. He's funny. He is still very powerful. He's also
brilliant.
He's not scarred or withered in any way. He's got his full self together. He
and I will say
mentally and emotionally ready to go have his adventures.
He's fucking depressed.
Yeah,
he's fucking
sad.
depressed. He's in his smoking jacket. I really thought
smoking jacket era. That's exactly
like he's in his soft
he
pants. He's in his soft pants and his smoking jacket times. You guys, like when you're sad and you need some chocolate and you want to sit in your soft pants under a cozy blanket, and that's where my guy is.
And have a good stupid boyfriend that will bring you food.
Exactly.
Like that's what you need in those moments.
Hot young boyfriend to bring you food. And that's what he has. Even though he's stupid, he has him. Yeah, exactly. I thought his costume was really, really like disheveled and dusty looking at first. And then when we got closer to him, he's not. It's like a pretty brocade, kind of a green gray brocade, and it's got texture to it, but he doesn't look like he's like wearing his clothes from 1716. You know what I mean?
No, I got the impression that the house that he's in probably doesn't have AC. And it's literally like he's just damp and wet because that's what you are when you're outside in New Orleans or dealing with the elements in New Orleans, you know?
Right. I mean, he's got fucking internet.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. He's got good Wi-Fi, and so there are aspects of this life.
He's got Apple products.
Well, okay. Louis even asks, "Enduring here," and he goes, "Not enduring, living." You know, this is not. There are choices being made in the movie, especially, and in the book. It's sort of implied that Lestat can't figure out the modern day, and is desperate for Louis. He's desperate for Louis here, but it's not the modern day that he can't figure out. He can't figure out how to get rid of Claudia. He can't figure out how to move on from that loss and his part in it, honestly. So I loved all of that. But it starts, though, he's got a young fledgling that he's made, not very old here, and very stupid, as we said, probably, just as he does in the book. That's the reason and the way that Louis finds him, is he follows the fledgling, just as he does in the novel. I love that. But I like the line here as Lestat throws fire at the fledgling and burns his jacket and then makes him leave. He goes, "Enjoy your rats, you French fucking bitch." Like, that guy has not had a good time of it with Lestat. He's no better as a maker and master at this point than he
ever was. Yeah. No, and he's not even getting the fun version of Lestat. He's getting sad stat. And that's not fun. Like, you're not having a good time. You're not going to parties. You're not sharing beautiful prostitutes. You're not doing any of that fun shit. You're just sitting there bringing him rats.
In the middle of this sort of depressing meet cute from from Lestat and Louis, he stops. He goes, "Siri, pause." Okay, I have waited so long to hear this beautiful man talk to his computers. All right,
I love it.
In most of the modern novels, Lestat talks about how much he enjoys and is fascinated by computers and then smartphones, and he can't really figure out his iPhone. But I don't think he talks about Siri specifically until maybe the Prince Lestat novels. But there's absolutely some interactions with
that's so great,
the speaking assistant in the book. So this is totally canon, guys.
I love it. I love it.
Okay, this is a perfect line. Louis asks him, why didn't you tell me that you saved me instead of Armand? And Lestat says, "I don't like to point out my virtues. Besides,
such an asshole.
Besides, I knew you'd figure it out. And look, you have.
You did.
I was right.
You don't.
All hail me."
He's I love him. He's so perfect.
He is.
Sam Reed is perfect.
But I don't know that was. I think Lestat's bullshitting there a little bit. I think he did know in that moment that Armand had bamboozled him, or at least had told a version
and he's not
going to
believe you.
But also,
Louis not going to believe you.
I think he was hurt, though. I think Lestat was injured in that moment that Louis would believe Armand before he'd believe Lestat, that he would buy the hook, line, and sinker. And he was like, "You know what? I've spent some time with that gremlin. You go ahead and have him, and
have fun."
Yeah, fine. You don't deserve me right now anyway, sort of thing. And so I do think there's a little bit of "I told you so" in Lestat's. He's trying to hold it because he also knows he needs to apologize. He has things to atone for to Louis. But there's also still a little bit of, yes, you are right. Yes.
Oui.
Okay, you mentioned it earlier how wonderful New Orleans is, but again, Lestat calls it out here. He says, Louis asks, still here in New Orleans this whole time? And Lestat says, I am she is me.
She is me. I love it.
I do too. That's how I feel. Okay. Beautiful delivery from Jacob here, though, as he begins his apology. I didn't know it was a gift. I wore it like a curse.
Yeah. Yeah, this is where he feels like my Louis, like the Louis I know. I feel like he's come, like this is all this shit he had to go through to become the Louis that we know in the books. And it was cool to go on this journey to get to this point with this character where he is grateful for what gifts he has been given. He is grateful for his time with humanity. He is grateful for his days ahead and grateful for the ones behind him. For
the nights in front of me when I might learn to live honestly. Thank you.
Yes, like that's so fucking Louis right there. That writing is so good, and it is so like when we talk about Louis struggling with his humanity and his connection to humans and to the world at large, like this is that Louis.
I love though how guarded Lestat is to start, because he's just certain that they're about to have an argument. He's just certain that Louis is about to unload on him with all the things that he's done wrong. It is the trend. Yes, and when he finally realizes that this is different, his first reaction is, "Oh." Like even once he finally gives up, I know, we could never be together or whatever. When he stops protesting, still he's like, tell me more. Actually, how is this? What is this game like? I've never played this game before.
Tell me how pretty I am and why you like me. Yeah.
Okay. Once we get that and Lestat understands where he's coming from and realizes that this is a bit of an apology, then Lestat opens up enough to ask the question that he needs to ask. And Ashley, all day long, I mean, listen, you know how I feel about Sam Reed and this character. He's had wonderful deliveries in a million different places. But this moment where he looks at Louis and asks, did you hurt yourself?
Did you hurt yourself?
Oh my God. I cried. I cried. I'm going to cry right now thinking about it, honestly.
I mean, it's just the most fucking heartbreaking delivery of a line I have ever heard. And also, and I think about people I have lost who have completed suicide. I like to have the chance to be able to look at them and to have that moment that he gets to have with Louis, because Louis survives that, it is just gutting. It was gutting and heartbreaking and beautiful, just beautifully. It shows the depth of that relationship. It shows the depth of their love. It shows the depth of Lestat, truly, that he is not, a fool, a joker, a jester type character, Oh, I was heartbroken.
Whatever else he is also madly in love with this man. Like Louis de Pointe-de-Lac is the love of Lestat's life. It's true here. And I think part of that, did you hurt yourself? Part of that delivery and the lines afterwards, honestly, is not just that he needed to know the answer. Did Louis really put himself through this? But also he's grieving for all those years of recovery that Louis had where Lestat wasn't by his side. Right? Yeah. That you didn't let me in that moment. And honestly, he knows at this point too that Armand didn't let him in either, but that I wasn't able to be there for you, to bring you back out of that. And it's wonderful that you're here now and we can have this conversation, but I mourn that I couldn't be there for you in your moment of weakness, and that
and that you ever got that you ever got to that point, that you wanted to leave. I think that there's different ones of our vampires that have promises to each other that they wouldn't leave the other ever. I won't ever walk into the fire. I won't ever do that as long as I know you're out there. And I just think that that's this kind of vibe. Like, how could you ever think about leaving like that when I'm here I haven't gone anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, okay. And Sam goes right after that. Let me go ahead and pitch for that Best Supporting Emmy. I can't get her out of my mind, talking about Claudia.
Yeah.
And they share that moment. And okay, some beautiful stuff from several different members of the Facebook community. I don't want to call anybody out individually because there were several really good things, and I think some of them were kind of personal. But that moment, I didn't really see it the first time that I watched it. I read the notes, though, and I watched it this way the second time. That moment is perhaps the most genuine representation of, the seed of this story in a lot of ways, which is Stan and Anne Rice mourning the loss of their daughter. Their daughter dies at 3-4 years old, and it almost destroyed their marriage. Anne became an alcoholic for quite a while afterwards, and really the writing is what brought her out of it. Through writing Interview with the Vampire. Interview with the Vampire didn't start as an idea because of her daughter's death, but the idea of Claudia in that narrative absolutely comes out of Anne and Stan's daughter. And so to see the representation of Anne and Louis, this mourning, grieving, don't know how to move on with life without my daughter, Stan as this strong and powerful vampire that she built. She said over and over again, Lestat is Stan in so many ways, which is the man that she wishes she was if she were a man. Mm-hmm. So to see them physicalized here, mourning Claudia, in just an open, honest, real moment. Also, I love that it wasn't romanticized. Right? I think they do actually. I think Louis kisses Lestat on the cheek just as they begin the silent sequence when the storm has overcome and we don't hear any more dialogue. I think there is a peck on the cheek, but they don't make out. This is not a groping affair. This is not sexualized in any way. There is a romantic nature of their discussion and the things that they're talking about because they both love each other. But that's not on the surface. On the surface is two people who know each other well, who have hurt each other, that are trying to help each other deal with their pain in this moment. And it's just perfect.
Yeah. I think if you know anybody who's dealt with the loss of a child, or if you know anything about, child loss, it's very, very hard on a marriage, a relationship, 100%. That's a very difficult thing to go through. And a lot of relationships don't survive that. And I think it's wonderful to see that kind of represented, even if it's in a, kind of supernatural kind of way, with it being, this being fucking vampires. But it's still nice to see that representation of what true loss is. Like, Claudia is not just a write-off character. It's not just like her importance is gonna carry through these characters' lives forever. Like, she's never going away. That's a shared loss that they're always gonna have, and they have to deal with it in order to move forward if that's what they want to do.
100%. So I've seen some folks that say, the storm building to this crescendo and it looks like the house is going to fall apart around them. That's really too much on the nose, whatever. I don't agree. I think it was perfect. And let me tell you why. First of all, because of the reference that we've had a few times already, the stormy romance of you two. That's literally physicalized here with the two of them finally connecting and getting over their pain and hurt of each other in the middle of a hurricane. But the other thing that you might not think about if you don't live in this area, we think of hurricanes in the modern day as these terribly destructive forces causing, millions and millions of dollars of damage and flood people's homes and et cetera, et cetera. That's all true. But the other thing that hurricanes is a natural part of the cycle that renews and regrows the areas where the hurricane hits. When the hurricane comes in, there's a tremendous amount of flooding, whether, we've got a levee or what. But there's a tremendous amount of flooding. And what does that do? First of all, it washes away what was there. And it allows for a time of new growth. It brings in all this silt, all of this sediment coming down that mighty Mississippi. And it puts that all in places where it wouldn't have reached before. And out of that, you get beautifully freaking fertile fields and all. I mean, the reason why that's where we grow our sugar cane, it's not just because it's hot down there, it's because the fields are fucking wonderful. Why are they wonderful? It's from flooding, it's from these storms,
it's from all the shitty things.
So what is this? I think it's literally the metaphor is played out in this relationship. We had to come to a crescendo. We have to reach this boiling point. We have to have catharsis. And then after the storm, you've got green fields. After the storm, you've got a fresh sky. After the storm, you've got the opportunity for new growth and new construction and new stories.
And it's about the choosing of the thing too. Like this isn't a convenient time to drag your ass to New Orleans in the middle of a fucking hurricane. You know, like it's not like, woohoo, let's all go down and party on Bourbon Street during the fucking hurricane, you know? Like that's not the situation. And so he's choosing to go. He's choosing to make the arrangements to go. He's choosing to make sure he has an oversized crate delivered for himself, you know? So like he had to choose to go find him. You know, it wasn't just something that could happen by happenstance. Not like they could bump into each other at Cafe du Monde, you know.
I do wonder, and hawk-eyed viewers, give us feedback on this, is the hotel that Louis goes to.
This is Pontchartrain, isn't it?
Okay. Is it the hotel where from the Mayfair series?
The Mayfair's, yeah.
It's the same one?
I think so.
You think it is?
I think it's the Pontchartrain, yeah.
It looked like the same set, at least. That was my guess.
It did.
Okay. Let's talk about timeline again here a little bit. We've established that I think that the Odette hurricane and this trip to New Orleans is supposed to be 2022, no matter when the real world events happen.
I don't think it's that long after him leaving.
I think it's maybe as soon as
however long it takes to get there.
I think it's as soon as he verifies that Armand's not in the house anymore. I think he left. And then he comes back and he makes sure Armand's gone. And when he sees Armand and Daniel are both gone, okay, great, I'm going to go do my thing. I don't think he left Dubai immediately. Maybe he did, though. I think it's as soon as he could, though, after those events. He goes and straightens this out with Lestat. And then I think we get a time jump. Okay, the first thing we know is publishing a book takes a while. It takes about a year from like you deliver the final draft to actually seeing it in stores. It's about a year. The book is not brand new in stores at the time where we see this interview.
No, he sold over 5 million copies already.
So it's been out a few months at least, even if it was a huge opening. And it's also taken longer than it probably would have because we find out in this scene he's been turned down by everybody. He didn't go with the Talamasca to start with, is my guess. He went lots of other places and they all said no.
Well, wouldn't he have had to get the novel from the Talamasca since they lit his laptop on fire?
Okay, I wondered about that too. So
it could be in his cloud, I guess.
That was my guess. And the other thing is, we do know that he's been interacting with his research people, right?
Oh, so that's true. Yeah.
He had sent my guess is he had sent everything except that very last recording had all gone off to someone already, and so he had copies of all those recordings and all of his notes elsewhere, and all he had to rehash was that final session.
So I totally read that as like, okay, well, he had to like get the Talamasca's okay to even go forward with this because that's who he had to get his information from since they had been all up in his computer.
Well, he's promised the Talamasca reciprocation of some sort to get the script at all. Like in the chat from this episode, Raglan says, what do you do if we give it to you? What's the reciprocation? So I think and this is why I say vampires didn't have to be involved necessarily with the turning down of all of the publishing houses. That might have been Talamasca controlled. You know, they came in
totally.
and said, oh, you can't publish this book, actually. Tell him no. You can't publish this book, teacher. Tell him no. So it's got to come through us. It's got to go through our editor. And to hear Daniel tell it, Rashid cut out a lot of stuff that he wanted to include in the novel, which is interesting to me. First of all, I'm assuming he cut out Rashid entirely, right? He cut out Raglan entirely. He cut out the mention of any mention of the Talamasca or where Daniel got all of this corroborating evidence, et cetera, because whether the vampires are out or not, I think the Talamasca doesn't.
I don't think the Talamasca doesn't want to be out. Yeah, no, they are firmly in the wardrobe, so to speak.
Yeah. But my read is that if the Lestat scene takes place basically immediately after Dubai, so it's still in 2022, I think at the earliest this scene with Daniel in the interview is in late 2023. My guess, honestly, is it's modern day. It's today, basically, is what we're supposed to see. That interview was yesterday on, Atlanta TV or wherever he was being interviewed.
Exactly. I have to say, immediately, I looked at his fingernails.
Okay, I missed the fingernails. For me, it was the glasses. When he's wearing the sunglasses to start with, I was like, he's a vampire already.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
The glasses made me think it, and then I was like, oh shit, I looked at his nails, and I wasn't sure if Brett knew that was like something that happens.
Possible. Yeah.
And so I didn't want to ruin it, but I was like, oh man, he's already a vampire.
So can we talk about, though, his different portrayal in that last scene too? And I'm super excited to see this Daniel in the future. This Daniel,
yeah, me too.
So Daniel, period, is brash, and he's got a lot of sass to him, and he's got a great charisma and wit. But Daniel had been depressed and stuck in life for a long time before he came to Dubai.
Sick.
And
fucking sick.
That's the thing that you got to remember. The guy was dying, basically, and didn't know exactly what it was going to be like. Maybe I'll lose all my faculties before I die, or I'll lose my mind before I die.
Which would be fucking awful for a guy like him. You know, like, I mean, I know that's awful for anybody, like any sort of like dementia-based anything is fucking awful. But
when I can't imagine living with your thoughts and your ideas.
Right, communicating. Like you're a communicator.
Yeah. It really, yes, it's a horrible idea. So, but what we get here is like swagger and bravado.
Oh my God. He's so confident.
I felt like we've heard Eric Bogosian say how he was surprised the first time he hung out with Luke Brandon Field or whatever, the guy that plays young Eric. He hung out with him, and he was like, he was watching me, and then I see his portrayal on screen, and he's mimicking me in certain ways, and he's improvising these movements that I do, and blah blah blah. I got the impression that Vampire Daniel is very much informed by what 70s Daniel
by young like. Daniel. Oh, yes. I love that.
Yes, I think very much Eric goes back and sees a little bit of the bravado, a little bit of the laissez-faire attitude, a little bit of this joie de vivre that we got from 70s Daniel. And think about it too, when Armand tries to give him the "you want to die" nonsense in that flashback, 70s Daniel didn't want to die. 70s Daniel was really enjoying himself, even on Skid Row, right? Well, now this Daniel's rich, and he's going to live forever, and nobody can hurt him because he's got a 500-year-old vampire's blood inside. Like, that's the other thing. We haven't seen how badass Daniel is as a vampire.
Not even a little bit, but just to see his character revived in such a like robust kind of way, it's just like what they say about, the dark gift kind of brings out whatever is great about you, whatever's the most beautiful about you, and all of those things. Like it just has brought all of that to the surface for him again, and I can't wait to see him next season.
Those curls are bouncing again. Yeah. He's got it. He's got
money. He wants to know where to send the checks, ma'am.
Yeah, that's what I love too. I love the fact that the book has been successful because Daniel is like, let me wire you $10 million, Louis.
Let me send you money,
you your
Louis.
piece. Come on, bud. Okay, and then we flash to the other side of that phone call, that telepathic phone call, and we see Louis back in Dubai. Very much a redecorated penthouse, though.
Yes, it's as though his own taste have come into play. And Claudia's dress is hanging.
Okay, the first thing I noticed was that the magnolia tree is gone.
I didn't even fucking notice that.
The magnolia
How did I miss that?
Gone. So, okay, the question for me is, did Armand take it with him? Or did Louis
burn it
up and throw it out the window? Yeah, like
set it on fire on the way down.
So yes, the magnolia tree is gone. The yellow dress is hanging in a place of prominence, and there's a portrait of Paul in that same room where the magnolia tree was before.
His rocks are still fucking there. I did notice that. I was like, didn't clear out those fucking rocks.
Okay, but you know what though about that? I do think, particularly if we're going to go with the theory that those are literally the same rocks from the coffins in Paris, then I think there is something to the idea of rebirth. Louis said in this episode when he was talking about that moment when Armand pours his blood into the coffin and he awakes, I was dead. My rage had risen, though, right? And here, I think we see, just as you said, it's the real Louis' rebirth here in Dubai in the modern day. And
it's just been so long since someone hasn't been fucking around with his brain.
Your boy.
Like, I mean, God bless. Like, he has to figure out who he is on his own. Like, and I don't even mean like on his own. Like, oh, you got to be happy by yourself before you can be happy in a relationship. Me. I'm not even saying that shit. I'm saying like he's got to figure out what it's like to be the only one in his fucking brain for a little while.
Yes, absolutely, that's fair. Although, and see, okay, that's my only real niggle with this episode at all. My only little problem. It's a good conclusion, right? And I do think part of this was we don't have confirmation on season 3 as we're wrapping this up. We don't know whether this is going to be all we get to do. Let's give it a satisfying conclusion. And if this had been all we had ever gotten, I think it would have been a fairly satisfying conclusion. It would have left me very sad that we don't get Rockstar. But for Louis' story, this could be an end with this boldness and braggadocio and you motherfuckers come. I own the night. It's a great line. Batman's line, I think, actually.
Yeah, very Batman.
So, but if this was the end, I'd be fine with that. Now, just as you and I were just talking, though, with this like newfound Louis, I wonder if this is the way that he would respond to it. I do think that it very much gives us, just as I've described this adaptation giving more reason to why Louis stayed with Armand, why Lestat let him go like he did. All those things has been given sort of rationalization in a way that the book didn't really give them here. This gives rationalization to Lestat's plan to go above and beyond. Oh, a book's not good enough. I'm going to go on tour, actually.
Right.
Why? Okay, Lestat now knows, because he can hear all of this vampire shit talk too. He knows that all of these people are screaming his baby doll's name, and it's not in love. It's out of anger and hate, and they're going to come fuck this dude up, and they're all talking shit.
Louis, you a danger girl.
Precisely. And the number one thing that Lestat can do to fix that without any impetus or help from Louis is to just stand in front.
Put the attention on himself, yeah.
Oh, y'all are mad about a book? Let me tell you about your origin story.
Yeah, I'm going to sing you some songs about it, and here are some music videos. Yes, exactly. Well, and I do think it's interesting because, our guy Daniel is trying to get Louis to write another book with him. But I mean, that could be if we do follow we're continuing to tell these stories, they're continuing to be published. It's setting Daniel up to be the story, the person the stories are being told to, the keeper of the words for at least a little while, like how David is.
I was going to say, okay, the end of the Queen of the Damned novel is when Lestat starts going and hanging out with David. He just shows up in the Talamasca mother house in David's office, and he's like reading a book or something when David walks in. Oh, hello, David, and let me tell you some things about vampirism. I absolutely think that's where we go in season 3. It's Daniel walks into his office or whatever, and Lestat's already sitting there, and he's reading the book, and he looks up. I assume I need no introduction.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going to be great. I'm just so excited that we got the 3rd season, because this would have been really sad to stop now.
Right. Okay, and the way they haven't given us a lot about season 3, but just the imagery, the purple with the stage lights behind it, the 3 in a jacket.
It's got a real Prince feel to it. It's like very Purple Rain.
It looks exactly like. Honestly, it looks to me like the Prince stuff when he was a symbol, right? Like that, I could see.
Yeah, absolutely.
A great big jagged L or something for the vamp, or even TVL. What if they used TVL, our abbreviation for the book for all these years, as the Vampire Lestat merchandise for his band? Like, fuck, give me a TVL T-shirt. Why don't you? In jagged pink.
We would like. We were already discussing the fact that we would like a concert, and that we would all be willing to travel quite far.
I mean, listen,
look.
I don't see very much live music, but I would go see Lestat. Also, fucking, if Chris Gaines can have an album, you can give me an album.
Yeah, I agree.
Go ahead.
Agree with that.
It can be like 7 songs. It doesn't have. You're like, we don't have a whole soundtrack. Fuck it. Lots of albums are 6. It make an EP. Right? It's just a little EP. That's fine.
A little treat. It's just a little treat.
Put that shit out so we can pay for it.
Yeah, we'll buy it. Yeah. We're ravenous. And a lot of us are in our 40s now and have some disposable income. So it's like Star Wars. It's such a great time to be a fan, to be like an adult, and I can buy whatever Star Wars shit I want. You want to give me some vampire shit? I'm ready for
it. This is a very good audience for you, AMC. Mm-hmm. Merchandising. Keep on. Vampons is not the only thing you can sell. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
Vampons. I love it so much.
So, all right.
I love it.
I love this show. I'm so excited about the finale. I'm so excited about what's next for this universe. We will continue to ruminate. We'll talk more specifically. There's a few things in the behind the scenes special that's already out. It's called Show Me More Season 2.
I haven't watched it yet. I'm going to get on it tomorrow.
It's on AMC Plus.
Or maybe tonight.
It's on YouTube as well if you're in the States. Apparently it's not available on YouTube outside of the US. But my guess is...
Sorry for that fake out, guys.
Right, I know. You all should be able to access it though on AMC Plus. So go check it out there. And genuinely, I did watch it this morning. You're not missing a lot if you don't get to see it. It is a lot of the main points from the episode insiders kind of put together. It's not just that footage cut together. It's a little bit more than that. You do get a few extra takes. The biggest takeaway for me was Sam towards the end. They're going, person by person, and they're talking about what's next. And everybody says some version of, I can't wait to see the rock star, or I can't wait to see where these stories go, or something. And Sam says, as far as where Lestat is going, I'm more excited to see where Lestat comes from. And so that's, to me, again, confirmation that we're going to get a real backstory. Don't worry about
He's so
flashbacks.
Good.
We're going to get it. We're going to get it all.
I can't wait.
Here, we're going to get feedback episode next week and a recap of the whole season. After that, we're going to start on the Vampire Lestat Part 1 on July 14th. And then on July 21st, listen to our discussion of The Lost Boys, great Kiefer Sutherland movie. Man, again, so much. If you've never seen that one, go check it out.
Oh my God, it's so much fun.
Pretty cheap. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere, maybe on Netflix actually. But check The Lost Boys out if you haven't, and then join us for our discussion. I think you're going to get a lot out of it.
It's so fun.
It is. It's so much fun.
It's genuinely fucking hilarious in a few spots too. Like it's,
it really is.
It's just genuinely very fucking funny, and it's just a delicious late 80s, early 90s romp. I just love it so much.
I mean, here's how you know it's 80s. The clip that you see in memes of the shirtless guy playing the saxophone to what's the Shallow Kisses or whatever, what's the song that they all do with the that's from The Lost Boys. That image of the shirtless man playing the saxophone is from The Lost Boys. So you have that to look forward to.
It's not even the most absurd thing you'll see.
It's really not.
That's Kiefer Sutherland's mullet.
All right. Until we come back next week to talk about our full recap of season 2 of Interview with a Vampire, we have been your hosts. I'm Joel.
I'm Ashley.
And we are the Articulate Coven. Mwah! Thanks for listening to The Articulate Coven. You can join our community on Facebook by following the links in the show notes or searching for Articulate Coven on Facebook. You can subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or at articulatecoven.com and share us with your Anne Rice loving friends.